Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode of the iERA podcast. Today we're joined by a very special brother Miguel Cabral. I would love to introduce him myself, but I think it would be better to leave it to him. Assalamu alaikum, brother Miguel. How you doing?
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well.
Alhamdulillah, bro. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, just for the viewers to know who we're having today.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Miguel. I come from a Portuguese family. I am a Muslim revert. I've been Muslim, alhamdulillah, for around 2.5 years at this point. And yeah, it's been a journey, it's been a process, and to this day, I'm still learning. So
now, when it comes to reverts, it always intrigues me how they end up finding the message of Islam, and it's hard for us, people who've always been Muslims, to see it the way new Muslims see it. With that being said, I just want to know what was Miguel all about before finding Islam?
Okay, so as a Christian, I grew up in a Catholic family, a traditional Catholic Portuguese family. Okay. My mother was very practicing, and my dad was practicing as well, a fair amount too. My mother wanted to become a nun when she was younger, so those goals and those aspirations of her kind of instilled upon me when I was growing up. So obviously, God was a big part of my life growing up, and I went to church on Sundays, and it was something that was always important to me. How much, to what level? I'll give an example. On my 23rd birthday, most people go out partying. I went to the Vatican and I went to mass. So it's one of those things where I was very practicing. It was something I took very seriously, and yeah, something always in my heart.
Yeah, I guess at least you traveled on your birthday. I mean, you did something, you know. But this is one thing that actually really interests me. Where do new Muslims find this interest or this spark to research other religions? Because usually, like, sometimes it will be like an incident/accident. It will be just an interest. It will be an action of another Muslim. They're like, okay, where's this coming from? Sometimes it could even be doubts. They see Muslims, and I hope no one sees it, Muslims like that, but they see them in a bad way. And they're like, why are they doing this? And when they research Islam, they're like, okay, hold on. For you, Miguel, where was the spark? Where did it come from? What was it? Yeah,
so to be honest, it's not something I actually was thinking about. It wasn't like one day I woke up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to become Muslim. It was just, it kind of happened. To be honest, it all started with the summer of 2018, and I wanted to take a university course, Intro to Christianity. I grew up Christian. I'm like, this will be a very easy course. I'll boost my GPA. It'll be very straightforward. So I enroll into this course. And I'm in the course, and before you know it, the course I found out was being taught by an atheist. So I'm like, okay, so this is going to be from a different dynamic of how Christianity is going to be taught to me. Because growing up Christian and in the family, and you go to church, it's told in one way, and the actual historical context of how everything evolved, being taught from an atheist, is also a very unique and different approach as well. So I'm in this course and I start learning about Jesus, the Jew, which is really, it's not really mentioned that much in Christianity, and how he lived his life and the practicings and teachings of him from a historical context. I started to see some red flags start to pop up. Things like the whole concept of the Trinity. That's a staple in Christianity in our modern time. And I found out that didn't actually come from the time of Jesus. It actually was implemented years after. So I started to think, if this is a cornerstone of Christianity and this didn't actually come from Jesus, where did it come from? So I dove deeper into it, started doing more research. I'd be going to this Intro to Christianity class, learning the history in that class. Then I'd be going home and doing more research on it. To be honest, it led me to more red flags where I started to have to look deeper. And I realized at one point I couldn't be Christian anymore because my core beliefs and values didn't tie up with what our modern day Christianity is and how it evolved from 2020 years ago at the time of Jesus.
I see. So from what I'm understanding, you dove deeper into Christianity through an atheist professor or teacher. It's like learning Islam on Reddit, man. SubhanAllah. That's beautiful. And in terms of the journey, so when you're like, okay, I need to learn, I need to understand more about religion. Where did you learn Islam? What was your source of the Islamic understanding? Where did you learn the fundamentals, the core teachings of Islam?
Yeah, so like I said, no one convinced me to come to Islam. It was one of those things where even before that course, I was just like, Islam is just kind of like a religion on its own. I would never really look into it. If someone kind of was like, hey, you should look into Islam, I kind of laugh at them because I'm like, I'm Christian. I heard that one before. I'm okay, right? It's one of those things where it's like, if someone was to push me towards it, I'd say no. But the way it happened was with all these question marks I started developing within Christianity, I started looking towards other religions. But my belief in God was always there. So I always believed in the God of Abraham. And I believed that there was God, and what happened after, like underneath, was kind of like fuzzy. So I wanted to kind of like clarify what was happening there. So obviously with the 3 Abrahamic religions from Christianity and how Christianity evolved from Judaism, I naturally looked into Judaism. And then I started doing research, looking into Judaism. And then very shortly after, I realized I couldn't be Jewish because like Christianity, things have evolved, things have changed. And ultimately there's one more religion left, and that's Islam. So yeah.
Out of curiosity, have you looked into Buddhism or atheism or agnosticism or any of these
So
things?
I've briefly dove into that. But like I said, the belief in the God of Abraham.
Oh, so you wanted to keep it there.
Within that,
okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
So I always believed in that. In
interesting.
God.
And you know, it's really interesting that you mentioned that because to me, when I'm thinking, this is just a me thing, but when I'm thinking of, for example, giving dawah to Christians, I approach it with a mindset that's like, what if a Christian was to give me their sort of dawah? You know, what if a Christian was to talk to me, a Muslim, about Christianity? And, you know, that makes it so much easier for me to understand, you know, because people just go in, there's Allah and this and that, there's the 5 pillars. We need to understand, you know, what would you do if a Christian came to you with the message of Christianity? So we always need to understand and like stay open-minded with these things.
It's very important, yeah.
Okay, so one thing I want to know, because this plays a huge role for when someone is learning about Islam. Your family at the time, did they find out that you were kind of, because you told me your mom was like moving towards the route of becoming a nun?
At one point, yeah.
At one point. So, and you told me that they're a fairly practicing Christian family.
Yeah.
So did they find out, did they notice? And if they did, what was it like?
Yeah, so like I can speak on my experience, but I'm sure it's shared amongst many reverts to Islam. When I initially took Shahada to become Muslim, it was one of those moments where I knew deep down it was something for me, and it's something that I know was the right decision. But I know for my parents and my family and my extended family, they might not see it that exact same way, because to a lot of Christians, Islam is a very strange and distant thing that they're not really taught much upon. So I was very hesitant and a little scared, to be honest, to tell my parents directly. But they kind of found out by accident. So
accident? How did they find out by accident?
Yeah, so when I took Shahada, it was on August 2nd of 2018. And that was a Thursday, and it was at Maghrib prayer. And I was told to come back on the Monday because there's going to be someone at the mosque that would be able to show me how to pray and make wudu and learn those basics of what Islam was all about and how to practice it. So Monday comes along. I don't own a car, so I have to borrow my parents' car. So
strike one.
yeah, pretty much. So I asked my parents, and my parents are like, "Oh, where are you going?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just need the car. I'm gonna go. I have to go out." They're like, "Oh, but where?" I'm like, "How can I answer this with like kind of implying that I'm going there and like not aligned, but also how can I also just kind of get past this conversation?" So they're like, "So where are you going?" I'm like, "To the mosque," and my parents are just like, haha, funny. Okay, we'll see you in a bit.
They didn't believe that.
They
doubted nothing.
Because it wouldn't make sense for
a Christian boy is not going nowhere.
Exactly, right? Like it was one of those things where it's like, okay, he's funny. This is like such an extreme example. He definitely wouldn't be going to a mosque. But I was. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Same
Friday.
Excuse.
Same
7
thing.
days a week. Beautiful.
Exactly. Where
like
are you going?
I keep it consistent at least, you know?
Exactly. Where are you going? To the mosque. And that worked up until Friday. Friday, I come back and my dad's in bed and my mom's in bed. And they're like, "So where are you actually going? Are you hanging out with your friends?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I went to the mosque." And they're like, "No, seriously, where'd you go?" And I'm like, "To the mosque." And then they're like, "But why?" And I'm like, "Because I'm Muslim." And then they look at me, and then they're like, the looks on their face are just kind of like, okay, he's not serious. Like, there's no way this is a, he's like, "No, but really, where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm Muslim. Like, I convert to Islam." And at that moment, it was one of those things where my dad just looks at me and he's like, I can't tell if he's joking, but I'm like, no, I'm serious. And then he just looks at me, he's like, "Well, that's stupid."
Oh, he says it the way it is? Word for word?
Word for word. He's just like, "Well, that's stupid." Because like, it's one of those things where like, my parents and like a lot of people who aren't Muslim, when you become Muslim, they think you're joining a cult, which is kind of funny because it's really not. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But yeah, my dad's like, well, that's stupid. And then my mom kind of heard it. And my mom, being the very, very practicing Christian woman, she's like, man, I'll pretend like I didn't hear that, kind of like rolls over in bed and kind of goes to sleep. Because it's one of those things where it's like, I could be dreaming. But yeah, you know, alhamdulillah, it worked out.
Alhamdulillah. So how is it now? Is it the same, or
you know what? At first, it was kind of a big shock, and I don't think it was like a bad shock. I think it was just like, oh wow, like it was a very unexpected thing to happen. Which I think for anyone who reverts to Islam, it's not something that's expected from many people. So when it happened, there was obviously like a kind of brief, kind of a little bit of tension, because they're like, wait, you can't eat this food. Why can't you eat this traditional Portuguese pork and stuff like that? And I'm like, I can't do it, right? Because I only eat halal at this point. So it's like, they start questioning things and if everything's straight. But over time, they started to see how I was as a person started to develop. I became more organized, more goal-oriented, more directed in life. So they didn't see this change as something bad. So my initial father was initially my father was like, this is stupid. But then within a couple of days, he goes to the store and buys the entire halal section of meat. Okay,
that was quick for a change, mashallah. That's pretty good.
Alhamdulillah, I'm really blessed with how my parents came through with it. But I don't really eat that much meat to begin with. But my dad came back with bologna. He came back with halal hot dogs, halal chicken fingers, halal burgers. I'm like,
you want to be a Muslim? Go be a Muslim.
Full section, everything clean.
Mashallah, that's pretty good.
Halal, everything straight through. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm glad that it worked out eventually. Now, I do want to take us back just one step before the Shahada. Now, I know when people accept Islam, there is either this. Actually, I do believe that with most of them, it's one turning point. One turning point, they're like, that's it. This is it. Did you have that, or was it more of everything just coming in together slowly?
Yeah. So through this Christianity course, started questioning it, then looking into Islam. I really saw something within Islam that I was more like, at first when I was Christian and I looked into Islam, I'm like, no, it's not really it. But after studying Christianity and seeing these gaps and how those gaps kind of tied into Islam, like the core belief of one God and understanding that, and like the core principles and values of what Islam is all about. I actually went to a local bookstore and I purchased a book, The Essentials of Islam by Tariq Ramadan. And I read that. And I remember when I was reading it, as I'm turning the pages and understanding what Islam was, after each page, I started to come to the conclusion that deep down in my heart, I'm going to become Muslim. I believe I started taking the Intro to Christianity course in beginning of May, so around May 4th. And by June 6th, I knew deep down after a few weeks in that course and after the course that I was going to become Muslim after reading the book. And so.
MashaAllah. Okay. So one time I was actually sitting in a gathering. It was a lot of Muslim brothers. Most of them were actually older. And I think a bunch of them had the Quran memorized. And I was sitting there and they were telling me about their experience with da'wah and how someone at work was calling a Muslim brother out for some verses in the Quran and whatever. And he tried to, repel good with evil with good. So he was telling me, that same Muslim brother told me about a sister at the time. No, it wasn't. It was just a lady he was talking to. And she said that she wouldn't accept Islam because she feels like she would be letting Jesus down in a way. Right? And I thought about that for 5 seconds. I'm like, okay, so now what? And within that same discussion, the Muslim brother told me that you're actually putting Jesus on a higher regard once you become Muslim, right? Now, I want to understand for Miguel, how did the role of Jesus change after you became a Muslim?
Yeah, so this is something that, I'll be completely honest, coming from a Christian background where Jesus is considered part of God and the triune, in the Trinity, it was something very hard for me to kind of just let go. So I had to do a lot of research on that. And when I mean a lot, it's something that I really had to dig deep because it was one of those very last things before I decide, yes, Islam is for me. So in Islam, obviously, Jesus isn't considered God. Jesus is considered a prophet. So I had to look into many different sources to kind of come to the conclusion that, you know what? Jesus isn't God. Jesus is a prophet. Jesus died on the cross. These are kind of core staples between on how they differentiate Christianity and Islam. with Jesus, to be honest, it came down to some lectures. Specifically, I remember, what's his name? He's a big lecturer.
Zakir Naik?
Dr. Zakir Naik.
I don't know. You just said like big lecture. I'm like, it has to be Zakir Naik.
He's very well known. And to be honest, it got to the point where I'd just be searching questions on Google and his lecture, alhamdulillah, would just pop up and I'd click on it. Did Jesus die on the cross? Did all these answers? And they'd always be answered. And the very beautiful thing with how Dr. Zakir Naik would answer these questions, he wouldn't use the Quran. He'd go into the Bible and then pull out the verses from the Bible to prove what Islam is saying. And it's very crystal clear in the Bible, but it's something that I realized that, and it's kind of true that not many Christians actually see these verses from open perspective. They see it from a very like narrative that's being taught. And I find it's very interesting when you're starting to look into other things. You have to always keep an open mind and understand how what you're being taught from people might not actually be what is represented within the text.
Yes.
So understanding, going through these lectures, and I got to the conclusion that, you know what, how Jesus is portrayed in Islam, it's something that I truly believe. And going from the Bible and understanding the Bible and what it actually says in the Bible compared to what the narrative of what people say is said in the Bible, I came to the conclusion that in Islam, Jesus is a prophet. And it's very unique because it's something that, with that evidence in the Bible, it does tie in very well. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. I like how you were like, you put everything sequentially, the way you're explaining it, everything was sequential and how you came down to these conclusions. Alhamdulillah. Now, one thing I want to know from you, now that you have taken the Shahada and have accepted Islam, were your expectations met? And I'm talking about the expectations you had before taking the Shahada. What you feel like after you accepted Islam?
So my view of Islam when I was coming into Islam is that Islam is more of a direct route to connecting with Allah or God. And to be honest, like I said before, my belief in God my faith in God was always very strong. So when I came into Islam, it didn't change. To be honest, I believe it even got stronger. I think there's something very beautiful that, coming from an outside perspective and looking into Islam, that I think is, I don't know if people speak about it or if they notice it, but like the praying 5 times a day and understanding the importance and significance of that in Islam is something that's very special. And that direct connection that you could just be talking to God. And of course, as a Christian, you could pray at any time, but the specific way that you do it in Islam and how everything goes and everything like that, it's very unique and very beautiful. Like when you're in the masjid and you're praying beside 20 other brothers, and that connection you feel by all being there for the common good, it's something very unique that didn't really exist within church. Within Islam, there's that very special bond that you feel when you're actually like right beside each other, doing it all for the greater good of submitting to Allah. There's something very special about that.
Islam is actually like a very organized religion, and it's only come down for our own better. And one thing I want to know is when you were learning about Islam and all of that, was understanding the Quran difficult? And if you caught something in the Quran, something that caught your attention, what was it?
Yeah, so I think something that made me hesitant about Islam is that a lot, like when you pray and when you read Quran, it's all in Arabic. And from someone who's not a native Arabic speaker, it's very intimidating. And it's something that even to this day, it's still a process, and I'm still trying to learn and go through and understand it better. But seeing the Arabic and just seeing these like kind of squiggly lines that you just don't understand, it is very intimidating. But to be honest, that's where I think right now we're really fortunate to be in a time where the resources that we need are accessible, like iERA, online. There's so many really good resources that you can look into and just see all the information that you need. The Clear Quran by Dr. Mustafa Khattab, I feel it provides a really good translation of understanding how the significance of the Arabic language is very complex, that you can't always like fully understand in English, but it's still put in a good way that provides good context to what's going on, but also accuracy. So that's something that like obviously was very intimidating. But within the Quran, I feel like there's so many beautiful stories that I personally attach to. And I know, for example, the stories of the Prophet Yusuf and Prophet Musa, I feel are very unique and very beautiful. I know with Prophet Musa, for example, the story of Khader.
Khader, yes.
Yeah, something very beautiful, and I think obviously, like, you know, I don't know if you're supposed to be picking favorite prophets, but stories of prophets within the Quran, I feel are very unique between Yusuf and Musa.
Yes.
The contrast of characters, Musa coming from like a very like high wealth family, and then Yusuf coming and being betrayed by his family, and then they're kind of complete opposites, and how their faith in God is what gets them through from such terrible situations. And kind of like what's unique about the Quran and how those prophets are portrayed, how they humanize them. They struggle. They're human too, which I find is very beautiful.
Now I do want to, like, a lot of people don't know this, but some of those people who are considering Islam go through a lot of struggles. They go through a lot of doubts. You know, maybe their family's not the most supportive. Maybe they just can't find the little push that they need to accept it. What would your advice be for those who are learning about it, or those who are willing to accept Islam but just have that little bit of hesitation?
Yeah, so that bit of hesitation is normal. I went through it. It's one of those things where it's like you're jumping into kind of like this new realm of like what life will be. It's like a new kind of lifestyle, right? So obviously there's hesitation there, but to be honest, my advice would be patient, look into it with an open mind and an open heart, and honestly seek the resources and go to people who are knowledgeable. First of all, don't go on to some random forum on the internet that has like some Q&A and you don't know who's actually answering that. Like there's some really there's really good resources that you can find and good people that you should be looking for advice from. Go to them and to be honest, just be patient. I think that's it. I think that's the most important thing. Be patient with yourself. Trying to understand everything all at once. To be honest, even for me, I'm still trying to understand everything, but it takes time. But yeah, open mind, open heart.
That's some good advice. Jazakumullah khair. Have you tried learning Arabic or picking anything up at all? Just out of curiosity, right? It's no right or wrong here, man.
Yeah, to be honest, I have started learning a little bit. I'm by far not fluent in it, but I have started taking a couple of tajweed courses and trying to understand like how each letter is pronounced, and then how the Arabic language is really beautiful. It's really complex. So it does take time, but yeah, I've learned a bit of it.
As long as you put Habibi at the beginning of every sentence, you will sound Arabic. I promise you.
Sounds good.
Jazakumullah khair. So something else that I do want to ask, because maybe people who've always been Muslim, or like they could have different challenges from those who recently accepted Islam. That being said, what were the difficulties that Miguel, as a new Muslim, went through after accepting Islam?
Yeah, to be honest, when you become Muslim, it is a change, especially when you've lived your entire life. For example, in my case, as a Christian, everyone knows you as that guy that's a practicing Christian. So when you're going through life and then all of a sudden you say, oh, I have to leave now, I have to go pray, there's some question marks that do raise, and people do get curious. And to be honest, when they do find out you're a Muslim, it's one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, it's either you're Muslim or, oh, you're Muslim. It's one of those two kind of, it's either good or bad. And to be honest, it's one of those challenges that with like having that discussion with family, having that discussion with friends, and seeing how that goes. To be honest, some of the challenges with my friends, some of my friends really didn't take it too well. And that's something that I've had to learn, that, you know what, there's people that are going to be removed from your life. But alhamdulillah, when people are removed from my life, more people were brought in. So it's a really unique situation where I've been really blessed. And I think at the time where everything happened, it was a beautiful transition of people leaving and new people coming. So those new people kind of taught me so much and were there to support me. So
I know that a lot of things change after people accept Islam. And one of the biggest one is their lifestyle. Because at the end of the day, Islam by definition is a way of life. What habits changed after you accepted Islam?
Yeah. So obviously when you go into Islam, like I said, it is a lifestyle, and there are things that are halal and things that are haram. So obviously eating pork, I didn't really eat pork to begin with, but making that switch, going from eating non-halal meat to only halal meat, not really drinking alcohol to not drinking alcohol whatsoever. These are things that I had to kind of change and make a conscious effort at all times, especially living in a Christian home, because these things weren't like just a natural thing to happen within the home. These are things I had to start being very conscious of. I had to prioritize that. And to be honest, at first it's kind of challenging because you're always constantly on like alert of what's going on. But over time, it becomes second nature. It's one of those things where when I'm looking at food, I'm like, is this halal or not? Can I eat this? Is it permissible? It takes time. It's a process. Everything, every challenge in Islam, there's reward in it. There's good in it. So it took a while for me to kind of get everything down. But in terms of like habits and all that, how I adjusted to it, the first couple of weeks, I definitely would say were very interesting. Understanding the rules, getting it from like a basic understanding to understanding why these rules exist. It took a while for it to kind of sink in, but overall, alhamdulillah, it's a challenge, but it was something I really enjoyed learning. I enjoyed the process.
Beautiful. You know, I could just picture the people that saw you before you accepted Islam and then a while after you accepted Islam. In their minds, they're like, those guys, Christian, going to church, and then the next time they see you, like, "Assalamu alaikum, how you doing?" You know, it's a whole different change.
I was going to say, to be honest, the change that people noticed wasn't actually on the outside. Because if someone actually spoke with me before and they spoke with me after reverting to Islam,
be the same?
They'd say I'm the same person. The only difference is I'm just praying 5 times a day kind of thing. So it's one of those things where personality-wise, belief-wise, I'm still believing in God. And who I am as a person was relatively the same. Obviously, there's some minor differences spiritually that changed, but overall, yeah.
Okay. So when you became Muslim, I'm assuming you got to know a lot of new people, and not new Muslims, like a lot of new people walked into your life, be it the person that taught you Islam, be it the person that helped you through it. How did you get involved? Like how did you integrate yourself into the Muslim community after accepting Islam?
Yeah, and to be honest, this is something that I know a lot of Muslim reverts kind of have that struggle with, especially if they don't grow up in a Muslim community. I'll be honest, I went to Catholic school from the age of, I think 3 or 4, all the way till I was 18. And to be honest, I only knew one Muslim until I was 21. And that one Muslim kid was just that one Muslim kid. I didn't really know him, but he was just there. I never spoke to him, so I didn't really know much about Islam. But growing up, going to Catholic school, I kind of grew up in a bubble. So the Muslim community was something that never really existed within that bubble. So obviously when you take Shahada and you become Muslim, you are, like you said, you kind of introduced to many different people. And to be honest, alhamdulillah, it's been a really big blessing because I think this diverse community of people that I've met has made me grow as a person as well. But how do I get in touch with them? That's something that's very sometimes a challenge. And to be honest, even to this day as a revert, it is still a challenge. Growing up, I think the best thing is as a Muslim to take initiative, to go out there and to meet people and to volunteer. I was very fortunate at the time that I decided to revert to Islam. I was still in university. So I had the opportunity to join the Muslim Students Association within my university, which provided me an outlet to connect with other Muslims, going to Jummah prayers within the masjid.
And how long did this change? Like how long did it take you to get involved into these things?
Yeah, so like I said, it's a really beautiful thing at the exact time that I became Muslim to the community joining, because I became Muslim in August. So within a couple of weeks, I was already back in school. And something that I wanted to make sure happened was I wanted to get involved. And with the MSA on my university, they actually had a position on the executive team. So I joined that, and I was fortunate enough to be part of the event planning. I was a
couple months after accepting Islam.
No, a couple weeks. A couple weeks from August to September. Yeah. So
and it's actually really good that you're mentioning right now, because when I was in high school, things were a little different, right? There was no there's no guidance, and the masjid we would be able to go to it pretty much on the weekend, because during the week everything's busy and like there's a lot of homework, which I didn't do anyway. There's a lot of homework. There's a lot going on. So
do your homework. Do your homework.
Do your homework, guys. Right? I'm not even gonna, just do your homework. But so there's nothing going on. There's nothing religious going on. There's no spirituality that's going on during the week, which is like Monday to Thursday or whatever. But one thing that kept me going is good company. Right? I've had that like throughout my my high school period, and even after until this day. It's a very important concept, the suhbah, the company that you have. And even the Prophet mentioned, alayhi salatu wasalam, al-mar' ala din khalilih. The person is upon the deen, is upon the way of life of his friend. So I'm like, it's really good that you join the MSA. And I do recommend those who have accepted Islam or those who are interested in accepting Islam to keep a good company around you, right? Now, there are new experiences, obviously, once you join Islam, things you have not experienced before, things you're completely new to. One of them is the holy month of Ramadan. So as a new Muslim, August... So it should have been
August 2nd.
So you missed it.
Yeah.
You just missed Ramadan. So the next year, I'm assuming a year was like
roughly. I'd say like 9-10 months.
9-10 months. What was your first Ramadan like?
Alhamdulillah, it was very beautiful. I'll be honest, it was a very unique experience because going a month where you're fasting every single day. When I was Christian, I thought it was the craziest thing.
Yeah.
But as someone who's doing it for the first time, as an adult, it's a beautiful experience because when you started out, you're hungry and you're like, okay, I'm hungry every day. But then after a couple of days, your body adjusts to it. And during this time, I found the ability to be able to connect to Allah in a way that I wasn't able to before. It's instead of being full of food, I was kind of like just at like a very mellow kind of like okay stage during the day, but that allowed me like clarity of mind and so many beautiful things that allowed me to connect to Allah and just have that kind of like consciousness of Allah at all times. The one thing is though, with COVID happening now, it provides a completely different experience for Muslim reverts. And this is actually one of the challenges that I'll be completely honest that I know I faced and I know many Muslim reverts face. With COVID right now, the masjids aren't open. So that connection to others has also been challenged. So during this time, especially Ramadan in my first year compared to Ramadan in my second year last year, it was a completely different experience. My first year, I was going to the masjid, I'm praying Taraweeh, I'm meeting with people, I'm going for iftar, sometimes I'm eating at home, sometimes I'm eating with friends. But then when COVID hit, I was all by myself, which I'll be honest, this is one of the biggest challenges where you're by yourself, you're doing everything by yourself, you're struggling by yourself, and it does get lonely. And it's during these times where there is loneliness, but I've come to the conclusion that this loneliness is there for a reason because it actually developed my relationship with Allah and it actually brought me closer. And it's something that I would never change because I found that my iman grew significantly because of it, because I wasn't relying on other people. I was only myself and my relationship with Allah. I focus on that. And that's something that even though it really does, I'll be honest, it does suck sometimes, especially in those days where you're by yourself, you're waking up early, you're making your own food by yourself. And during the day, you're praying by yourself. There's no one there. Like with COVID, it's praying by yourself for 3-4 months on end. It does get difficult, but there's a beauty in it. There's a beauty in this kind of development, in this struggle, and this patience. There's something that you learn in your character, it develops because of it. Ramadan is a very challenging time, but a very beautiful time. And for reverts, it's something that I think that everyone should, like I said, be patient with and learn to enjoy, because it's something very special. And everyone's experience is going to be unique and different, but something that it will help you grow as a person is something that I can't emphasize enough.
Oh, that's well said, mashallah. Actually, it reminded me of 2 points. The first one is, everyone's on a different level of iman. We're all actively or passively working to increase our iman. Now, some of us are getting there. Some of us might be a little higher, but we're still trying to get there. My point is, if you're someone that needs to develop your iman, make sure you surround yourself by those who are actively working on their iman as well, because now that will bring yours up. And again, it goes back to what the Prophet said about the company around you, right? Because again, the person is on the way of life of his company. And also the other point is, you reminded me of the time when I was in grade 11 and Ramadan time came around and we had this guy in school. His name is Brandon, right? I don't know what he's doing in life. I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's alive. I hope he's doing well. Brandon noticed that on one of the days of Ramadan that we're fasting. So Brandon comes up to us, is like, he does the basic thing, no food, no water. We're like, yeah, no
Not
food,
even
no
water?
Not even water,
even water? Yeah.
not even gum, like nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, that's crazy. So how long do you guys do it for? I was like, at the time it was like 19 hours, right? And he's like, you know what, I want to try it. Till this day, I have not found someone like Brandon. He actually went home the next morning. He came and he literally, I think he either woke up at like Fajr time, non-Muslim. He's a non-Muslim, right? He's a non-Muslim, and he's like, you know what? Let me try this. And he actually did it for the whole day. He came back, right? And you know, I should have made him feel proud, but I was like, bro, you got 29 days to go. He was shocked, you know. But
Yeah.
May Allah guide him wherever he is. I hope he's doing in life. So thank you for reminding me of that story. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we have come to an end for this episode. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much, Brother Miguel, for joining. I told you, it's a special brother. Jazakumullah khair, and we'll see you in the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.